James and I entered into a business marriage. He had a longtime love interest he adored, while I was the type to fall for anyone I met. When I learned his beloved was ill, I immediately went for tests to check bone marrow compatibility and blood type matching, just in case they dragged me into some organ transplant registry. James's beloved had leukemia. I first met this white moonlight at our engagement banquet, where James knelt in the hall pleading with the Wang family's daughter to call off the engagement. I was that Wang family daughter. This enraged James's parents, but I managed to smooth things over, even serving tea to the white moonlight. Kneeling beside James, I pleaded with the white moonlight to grant us her blessing, declaring my profound love for James and begging her not to tear us apart. This earned the support of the Shin family parents. Afterward, James gripped my chin with a sneer. "Camila, you're truly deeply in love with me, aren't you? You just want to marry me that badly?" I shook my head. Mainly, my father's current project needs funding. Plus, the Wangs and Shins are old family friends. Our marriage would benefit the family business. James was speechless. Seeing his disbelief, I pulled out a phone and pressed it into his hand. "I know Uncle Shin forbids you from contacting her. Use this phone to reach her. I've arranged for her to stay at the mountain villa in Forest Lake. You can go find her there." James was speechless. From then on, James and I lived as a couple in name only. I occasionally accompanied him to dinners or charity events, but most of the time, he was at the mountain villa with Lucy. When I learned Lucy had leukemia, I rushed to get tested that very night. Only upon discovering our bone marrow was incompatible did I breathe a sigh of relief. The mountain villa was purchased with my private funds. The Shin family couldn't trace it here. I provided her with the best medical care possible, ensuring Lucy could recuperate in peace. But Lucy had a fiery temper. She'd smash things every other day. Whenever James got frustrated with her, he'd storm over to me to vent. His reasoning was simple: if I'm miserable, you won't be either. But this time, his timing was poor. Elias was lying on my bed. When James burst in, Elias was still drying his hair with a towel, wrapped only in a bathrobe that revealed his 8-pack abs. They locked eyes for a long moment before Elias suddenly laughed. "Sis, I'm practically naked here." "What are you doing?" I leaned against the wall and turned my head away, momentarily speechless. I could only lift my eyes slightly to gauge James's expression. James's face was as dark as a pot bottom. His temple twitched visibly before he pressed his index finger to his brow. "Camila, you sure know how to have fun." James gritted his back teeth, his tone laced with venom. I gave a sheepish laugh. "Not exactly. He's here to fix the AC." I suddenly remembered I had indeed called an AC repairman, so I quickly pulled up the WeChat chat history to show James. James's expression softened slightly, though it remained grim. Elias, meanwhile, watched me with a half-smile. I had no time to worry about his feelings now. My only priority was to get rid of James, this big Buddha, before he ruined the cooperation between the Wang and Shin families. Just as I was fretting over what to do, the doorbell rang, like a lifeline plucked from the flames. I sprinted to the door, flung it open, and the man waved his tools at me. "Air conditioner repair." His smile was genuinely earnest, likely oblivious to the depth of my despair. James snapped, "Enough." He casually pulled out a wad of cash and tossed it into Elias's arms, his thin lips parting. "Take the money and leave." Elias waved the bills in his hand and grinned at me, revealing 2 sharp little fangs. Yet the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sis, next time something this sweet comes up, give me a shout." Rain had started falling outside at some point. James opened his umbrella and climbed into the car without a second glance. I had no choice but to scramble into the back seat, soaked to the bone. The moment I sat down, a towel smacked me in the face. I looked up at James, who frowned and ordered me to wipe myself off. "Don't dirty his car." I nodded and began drying my hair. Even with the windows closed, the chill made me sneeze involuntarily. James turned on the heater. "Grandma wants us to have dinner at the Shin residence tonight." I hummed in acknowledgement. After a moment's silence, he added, "Change into something else before you go. You don't want Grandma thinking I'm neglecting you." I hummed in acknowledgement while continuing to dry my hair. As if unable to bear the awkward silence in the car, James spoke again. "Don't you truly want to keep your husband's heart and secure your position as Mrs. Shin?" After a pause, he added, "Of course, I'm not telling you to compete with Lucy. I just want to advise you, if you have such thoughts, it's best to curb them early." I stopped drying my hair, my expression sincere. "James, rest assured. I absolutely won't harbor any improper thoughts toward you. I just want to live a peaceful life. James gave a faint MHM. Suddenly, he made a sharp turn to stop, slammed both hands on the steering wheel, and cursed under his breath. My instincts told me something was off with his mood today. Sure enough, he got out of the car and pulled me out of the back seat. Walk back. I froze. Why? Through the rain, James's lips curved into a cold smile. So Grandma will feel sorry for you. Camila, aren't you the best at playing the victim? The black sports car vanished into the downpour. I sighed, somewhat speechless, and opened the ride-hailing app. Half an hour later, I arrived at the Shin family compound. Grandma Shin was already seated at the head of the table, waiting for me. I had changed into clean clothes beforehand. James seemed pleased with my performance, giving me a slight nod. I returned a smile. He leisurely placed a small piece of beef into his mouth, then lifted a cup of hot tea and handed it to me. Camila, have some. Warm yourself up. Grandma Shin chuckled playfully. This boy knows how to treat his wife well. I took the cup with a forced smile as James leaned in to whisper how I'd gotten there. Taxi. Grandma Shin peeled a mango and placed it on my plate, her smile warm and kind. Camila, you're so thin. Eat some fruit. Before I could find the words to refuse, James took the mango. Grandma, Camila's allergic to mango. Mrs. Shin's face flushed with embarrassment. I didn't mind, she'd never been fond of me anyway. Then, as if remembering something, she patted James's hand. You must treat her well. Don't forget how Camila cared for you when you were sick. Ahem, I choked out. James paused slicing the beef, shooting me an ambiguous glance. I felt inexplicably guilty and lowered my head, avoiding his gaze. Mrs. Shin was referring to an incident 3 years prior. Back then, James had been cut off financially by the Shin family over Lucy, and coincidentally fell gravely ill, requiring a large sum for treatment. My business had just started thriving at the time, bringing in substantial profits. Later I learned it was all an act. Mrs. Shin swore up and down that I was someone who could share both hardship and joy, while Lucy was merely after the Shin family's money. Even after James recovered, Mrs. Shin still told everyone how I had stood by him through his illness. Except she got the main character wrong. It wasn't me who tirelessly tended to James day and night at his bedside, it was Lucy. She even came to me for money when hospital fees fell short. What did I say back then? Yes, I pushed Lucy away. If James truly loved me, he wouldn't have gotten so expensively ill during my career's ascent. Hearing this, James, lying in bed, coughed up a mouthful of blood. But for some reason, James didn't expose me to his grandmother. Instead, he credited me with all the care. Even now, when it comes up, I still feel guilty. All I can do is keep serving Grandma Shin more food, urging her to eat. After finishing the last piece of beef on his plate, James lifted his coat from the chair and stood up. Grandma, I'm heading to the office. Mrs. Shin frowned disapprovingly. You can't always be so busy with work. Spend more time with Camila. Not necessary. James shot me a lukewarm glance, grabbed his car keys from the table, and turned to leave. I continued sipping my soup, lost in my own thoughts. Halfway through, someone nudged my arm. I looked up to meet Grandma Shin's excited face. She thrust a thermos into my hands and waved her hand. You know, stop being so passive. There are plenty of young vixens out there keeping an eye on him. She patted my hand and pressed the container into mine. Go deliver this soup to James for me. He barely touched his earlier. Wait for him to finish work, then you two can head home together. I paused, unable to think of a reason to refuse, and reluctantly agreed. At least delivering the soup would satisfy Grandma. Whether James drank it or not was none of my concern. To prevent the driver from spilling the beans, I decided to take a taxi. But the moment I stepped out of the Shin residence, a handkerchief was pressed over my nose and mouth. In the split second before blacking out, only 3 words echoed in my mind, how cliché. The hood was pulled off, and I found myself tied to a stool. Before me lay a dilapidated warehouse, the floor stained with crimson rust water. My eyes struggled to adjust to the harsh light of the warehouse. I blinked, and a knife was already pressed against my throat. You're James's wife? I shook my head, then nodded. Yes, I am Mrs. James. But he doesn't love me. He won't pay for my ransom. You've kidnapped the wrong person. James has a white moonlight named Lucy. She's the one he truly loves. She lives in that villa by Forest Lake. Kidnap her instead. Make James pay. Perhaps I'd revealed too much too quickly. The two kidnappers exchanged glances, silent for a long moment. Truthfully, I hadn't meant to drag Lucy into this. Knowing James's nature, he'd likely prefer me dead to make room for Lucy. He'd never rescue me. But if Lucy were here too, things would be different. A day and a half later, Lucy was brought before me, hooded. She wore a white dress, her wrists raw and bleeding from the ropes she'd struggled against. I feigned innocence. "Lucy, what brings you here?" Lucy shot me a look of utter contempt before straining against her bonds again. She bit her lip hard, her face set with resolve. My original intent was to clear my own suspicion, and I was already satisfied with the current effect. I truly hadn't expected the kidnappers to respond. "Didn't you tell us to bring her?" I turned to look at Lucy. She stared at me, speechless. After a long moment, she spat out, "You poisonous bitch." The kidnappers bound us together, then pulled out a phone and thrust it at Lucy. "Hey, call your man." Lucy turned her face away, defiance etched across her features. The kidnappers grew angry, slapping Lucy's cheek with the flat of a knife. "Oh, a tough nut to crack, huh? Let's see if your bones are harder than this blade. Jack, take care of these two, hold on." I finally managed to spit out the rag stuffed in my mouth. "I'll call him." The phone was thrust at me. I dialed James' number. A deep, magnetic voice answered lazily, "What is it?" I cleared my throat and tearfully told James I'd been kidnapped, begging him to pay the ransom. After a long pause, James uttered a flat "Oh." I kicked Lucy hard. Her startled cry made James instantly alert. "Where are you? Is Lucy with you?" Before I could answer, the phone was snatched back. The leader grinned slyly, "If you don't want your woman dead, bring 5 million to the docks by noon tomorrow. If you dare call the cops," he was cut off mid-sentence, "how about 3 million? I'm only saving one. Listen to this. Listen to this. Is this even human speech?" The kidnapper apparently couldn't bear to listen anymore. He bluntly dropped a line, "If I don't see 5 million, come collect the bodies," and hung up decisively. The next day, Lucy and I were tied to the edge of the reef, with the raging sea churning below. I was genuinely terrified these two idiots would pull some only one can be saved stunt. I had no doubt James would abandon me without hesitation. Fortunately, they didn't. James tossed the money over and released us. By the time Lucy threw herself into James' arms, I'd already made it to the other side. A swarm of police officers swarmed in, pinning the kidnappers to the ground. James glanced at me once, his arms wrapped tightly around Lucy as he comforted her. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling his gaze kept drifting back to me, whether intentionally or not. Just as I was about to slip away, Lucy suddenly clamped down on my wrist. "Camila, where do you think you're going?" Her grip was painfully tight. I looked up just as she frantically patted James, then pointed an accusing finger at me. "James, Camila brought me here." If you don't believe me, her eyes flickered with panic until she spotted the two kidnappers, and her expression steadied. "Ask them if you don't believe me." I looked up to meet James's probing gaze. He stared at me intently for a long moment before his thin lips parted softly. "Camila, you'd better pray this has nothing to do with you." Lucy was deeply dissatisfied with James's attitude. She desperately wanted him to punish me, but James remained unmoved. Instead, she coughed up a mouthful of blood. James swiftly scooped her up, then ordered the driver to head to the hospital. As he stepped into the car, he turned back and gestured for me to follow. I dragged my feet into the vehicle, settling into the passenger seat with a resigned shrug. "Calling me along won't help, my blood type doesn't match hers." James pressed his tongue against his cheek, grinding his molars. "Camila, what the hell is going on in your head? I just wanted you to get checked out at the hospital too, so Grandma doesn't come after me if you get hurt." Wait, he didn't want me to donate blood for Lucy? Guess even novels aren't entirely accurate. CEOs can be normal people after all. I never expected to run into Elias in the hospital lobby. He was slumped lazily in a corner playing games, wearing a gray hoodie with his hands loosely stuffed in the pockets. I tapped his shoulder. He looked up, frowned, then lit up with surprise when he recognized me. "Sis, what are you doing here?" The 6-foot-tall boy pounced on me, his weight sending me reeling as I struggled to steady myself. A friend of mine is hospitalized here. I came to visit her. Oh, Elias said, his expression suddenly clear. You mean that guy from the other day? He looks like he's got some serious illness. Elias's words made me laugh. Suddenly, Elias leaned close, his thin lips brushing my ear as he whispered, "Don't move." My whole body froze. I watched as he plucked a tiny leaf fragment from my hair, smiling at me brightly. All done, sis. I reached up and ruffled his hair with a smile, only to turn and lock eyes with James, his face ashen. Before James could speak, Elias stepped in front of me, grinding his teeth like a small animal. What are you doing here? James shot him a cold, mocking glance. Ignoring Elias, he strode toward me with long strides. Before I could react, a box of hot milk was thrust into my arms. Warm your hands. Lucy decided she didn't want it. I raised an eyebrow, inserted the straw, and took small sips. Elias remained planted in front of me, protective as ever, but James never once acknowledged him until he left the hospital. Before departing, he merely mentioned urgent business at the company, instructing me to wait for the driver and not wander off to cause trouble. James was always like that, he hated it when people caused him trouble. When I got home, old Mrs. Shin was already waiting in the living room. Seeing me, she tapped her cane and gestured darkly to the seat beside her. I obediently sat down. She studied me first, making sure I wasn't hurt, before launching into her scolding. Did you hide Lucy at Forest Lake? You silly girl, you could have told Grandma instead of putting yourself through such hardship. I kept my head bowed, maintaining an obedient and gentle demeanor as I listened to her lecture. In the end, the old lady grew exasperated. I've already sent people to drive Lucy out. Since Forest Lake is your property, you'd better take good care of it. I was stunned, not expecting the old lady to be so ruthless. She patted my hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I've got James covered. Yeah, right. No one could sway James. My heart sank. I dreaded confronting James directly, yet I had no choice but to explain the situation to him. The more I thought about it, the more my head ached. I made an excuse to retreat to my room and rest. Sure enough, barely moments after returning to my room, James's call came through. His voice was as low and husky as ever, sending a tingling sensation through me. Did you get the Forest Lake house back? Yes, Grandma, he gave a faint hum. I know. Get some rest. After hanging up, I sat there for ages, still reeling. When did James become so easy to deal with? I keep a little lamb named James in the Shin family's backyard garden. I often poke its nose and ask, James, what kind of creature are you? But it can't speak, all it does is ba ba ba. I never imagined my little lamb would offend Lucy. When James came to confront me, I was eating. He angrily tossed a white dress onto the chair, glanced at my half-eaten toast, and spoke with biting sarcasm. You still have the nerve to eat? Why don't you ask your little lamb? I was a bit confused, my lamb has already eaten. James faltered for a moment, pressing his index finger to his temple. Your little lamb chewed up Lucy's white dress. That dress was a gift from me. Hearing this, I grew angry too. Having just had a bit to drink, the alcohol emboldened me. I rolled up my sleeves and confronted James. Call Lucy over here. She's outrageous. How could she let my lamb eat her dress? Our James is so adorable. How could she do that to him? And just like that, the tables turned. Instead of James grumbling at me, now I was grumbling at Lucy. Apparently James carried me back to the house horizontally. In my hazy state, I only remember someone asking, what did you say the lamb's name is? James, I replied, laughing happily. But the person in front of me looked furious. He snorted coldly, that thing is named James? I shook my head earnestly, correcting his mistake, it's not a thing, just like James. I don't know if it was the alcohol talking, but after saying that, James' face seemed to flash before my eyes. He gritted his teeth and said I'd gotten pretty bold. The next day, after sobering up, I timidly went to apologize to James. Not only was the Wang family far less wealthy than the Shin family, but I lived in constant fear of hearing James say the Wang family could go bankrupt. Besides, my little lamb had indeed made the mistake first. When I presented the mended skirt to James, he lifted it with a dismissive glance and chuckled, Where did you find this rag? I snapped back, This is Lucy's skirt. I worked hard to mend it, it's not a rag. Only then did James close his laptop and scrutinize my clumsy stitches. It's actually quite well sewn. Just don't sew it next time. Fuming, I snatched the dress back. Take it or leave it. And why did you bring Lucy home? What if Grandma finds out? James took a sip of coffee. Don't panic. I just brought her to pick something up. Grandma won't know. After a moment, he added, not if you don't tell her. I grumbled, oh. Then, by the way, are you sleeping at the Shin house tonight? James paused typing, his expression a mix of amusement and skepticism. When haven't I slept at the Shin house? His words hit me like a bolt from the blue. Then how come I didn't know? James ruffled my hair. You sleep like a dead pig. What would you know? Grandma had gone on a trip to Florence. The night she left the country, I brought Elias back. But I hadn't expected James to bring Lucy back too. So the four of us gathered in the living room, staring at each other in silence. Every time two pairs of eyes met, an awkward quiet descended. How about playing cards? I pulled out a deck. Truthfully, the card game was just an excuse. Bringing Elias home wasn't my idea either, James had instructed me. I had no clue what he was scheming, but I knew my little lamb had caused trouble again. Last time it chewed Lucy's skirt, this time it knocked her flat on the floor, making her vomit blood. Panic washed over me in an instant. Helpless, I stood by as James carried Lucy away. Before leaving, he gave me a piercing look. Elias stepped forward, ruffled my hair to calm me, and pulled a beautiful collar from his pocket to fasten around the lamb, so pretty. Just as pretty as Camila. Suddenly, I felt like crying. Instead, I crouched down and hugged the lamb and Elias tightly. Mid-sob, I lifted my tear-filled eyes to Elias. Elias, if your sister could grant you one wish, what would you want? Elias shrugged. I don't really want anything. But if I had to choose, could you help me find a job? Those few words sent my heart plummeting. What had James said when he asked me to bring Elias home? You can ask Elias if there's anything he wants, like a job. Specifically, one at the Shin group. In that instant, I felt like I'd walked into a trap, ensnared without realizing it. Then Elias added, I think the Shin group would be pretty good. When Elias and I hurried into the living room, James was applying ointment to Lucy's scraped palm from the collision. Lucy spotted me and immediately curled up tearfully in James's arms. His expression darkened. You've raised quite the beast. The villa staff watched me like spectators at a show. The doctor lifted his head at the remark, leaving me frozen in place, utterly embarrassed. Little lamb is usually so gentle. I don't know why it hurt Lucy. Besides, it doesn't have thoughts, it doesn't understand. Before I could finish, James cut me off. If animals have no thoughts, does that mean their owners don't either? Snickers echoed from the servants around us. I felt like a child caught in the act, dragged to the front of the class for public humiliation. Elias touched his nose, opened his mouth, but said nothing. It's just a little lamb. It has no thoughts. If you hadn't gone to it, how could it have hurt you? The doctor who spoke up for me was now tidying up medicine bottles with a cold smile. Mr. Shin, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Someone unaware might think the lady in your arms is Mrs. Shin. I recognize this doctor, Dr. Wyatt Zhou, recently returned from abroad with exceptional medical skills. I hadn't expected James to summon him just because Lucy had a minor scrape on her palm. Just as I hadn't expected him to speak up for me. James was clearly annoyed. He gripped Lucy's hand unconsciously tighter, not noticing her frown. Dr. Zhou sure likes to meddle in others' business. Wyatt smiled, his eyes filled with indifference, as if watching a childish tantrum. I couldn't care less. Wyatt grabbed his first aid kit and walked out. Passing the dining table, he lifted a bottle of liquor and gave it a shake before turning to me. Mistakes always come with consequences. This stuff's bad for you, confiscated. After Wyatt left, a wave of hurt washed over me. James, after all these years of marriage, have you ever truly seen me as your wife? James raised an eyebrow, a mocking smile playing on his lips. What? Playing the emotional card now? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Our marriage was a business arrangement from the start, no point expecting more from him. There are cameras in the garden. Go check the footage. The moment the words left my mouth, Lucy's face visibly paled. James' expression grew colder. You think I'd suspect Lucy? He wouldn't check the footage. Reviewing the footage would be slapping Lucy in the face, proof of his distrust. He'd only accuse me instead, blaming me without a second thought. I chuckled and flipped him off. Then I turned and headed upstairs. On the stairs, I suddenly remembered Elias. "Oh, right," I called back, "Elias, you start at Shin Group tomorrow." Elias's face lit up. James, lazily twirling Lucy's hair, glared at me, his face ashen. "Didn't you dislike Elias?" "Well, I'll make sure James sees him every day. When it comes to being a pain in the ass, I, Camila, have never lost." Back in my room, I changed clothes and climbed out the second-floor window, planning to hit the bar and dance. But at the Shin family mansion's entrance, I ran into Wyatt again. He leaned against a car in his white coat, sipping water. Seeing me, he smiled, his eyes crinkling into a crescent. I was shivering in the cold wind, wearing a crop top and a miniskirt. Seeing Wyatt, I merely nodded in greeting before turning to leave, only to be stopped. Wyatt capped his water bottle and pointed at my outfit. "Girls who don't keep warm are prone to menstrual cramps." Then I felt warmth envelop me as Wyatt draped his lab coat over my shoulders, pulling the collar tight. He pressed the water bottle into my hands. "Here, warm your hands." Holding the bottle, I felt flustered. I didn't understand why he was being so kind to me. People tend to feel vulnerable when they're sick, just like I was now. I sneezed, lifted the lab coat to wipe my nose, then feigned innocence as I looked at Wyatt. "Dr. Zhou, you don't mind, do you?" "I, Camila, am a despicable person, a coward who fears death, avoids trouble, and is utterly spoiled." Wyatt would discover my true colors sooner or later, so it was better he found out early, sparing himself the wasted kindness. James probably liked Lucy for her defiant spirit. She dared to throw things at him, while I never dared resist him. Wyatt merely chuckled softly, extending his long-fingered hand to pull out a tissue and wipe my nose. His fingers were cool, his fingertips gliding across my cheek. A tingling sensation spread from my heart to my limbs. "Wrap up warmer next time. Don't catch a cold. Get in. I'll drive you. It's on my way anyway." But I haven't said where I'm going yet. Wyatt had already opened the car door, smiling at me. "I'm free. Anywhere is on my way." When I said I was heading to the bar, Wyatt refused. He turned on the car's heater and rolled up the window. "You didn't finish your meal earlier. Are you hungry? Let's grab something to eat. Guess where we're going?" The mention of food instantly perked me up. "King crab." "All right, then we're having king crab." Actually, I once liked James. When I got my first period, I thought I was dying. The blood stained my white dress red. James took off his jacket to shield me. His face flushed crimson as he handed me a sanitary pad, fidgeting awkwardly. "Here. I just bought it at the supermarket. Don't wear white dresses anymore. They don't look good." I never wore a white dress again after that. But he fell for Lucy, who loved wearing white dresses. I got the lamb after realizing I liked James. I named it James too. But now I'm ready to slaughter the lamb that served its purpose, because I don't like James anymore. Or rather, I never really liked him much to begin with. Falling for one person after another has always been one of my fine qualities, Camila. Besides, Wyatt completely outshines James in every way. Just as I was sharpening my knife for the lamb, my phone buzzed with a message from Wyatt asking what I was up to. I snapped a photo of the lamb and sent it to him, telling him I was preparing to eat it, lamb chops for dinner tonight. "How could you bring yourself to eat it?" "Because after 3 years, it hasn't laid a single egg." Wyatt sent a ha-ha-ha emoji, then video called me, urging me to keep it. Wyatt's lips curved into a gentle smile on the screen, filling my entire display with pink bubbles. I couldn't care less about the lamb now. So I squeaked, "Big bro, can you help name our little lamb baby?" Wyatt's smile deepened. He lowered his head, soft strands of hair brushing his brow, his starry eyes sparkling. I was utterly captivated by his beauty and blurted out first, "How about naming it Wyatt?" "Just like you, adorable." Wyatt pouted playfully, his back to the light, his milky white skin almost flawless. He tapped the screen with his knuckles. "Silly girl, I'll smack your forehead." Holy crap, big bro's gonna kill me. Later, the lamb's name was settled as White, a phonetic variation of Wyatt. Naturally, my bond with Wyatt grew rapidly. On National Day, Wyatt suddenly messaged me to come downstairs. I opened the window to see him standing below, holding a bouquet of roses. I dashed down the stairs to him. Wyatt opened his arms wide, embraced me, and spun me around in the air. Holding the roses, I put on an act, "But Dr. Zhou, I have a husband." Wyatt blinked his long lashes, casting shadows beneath his eyes. In his babyish voice, he said, "I just gave you flowers, sister. No other meaning. Big brother won't be mad, right?" I rubbed his cheek, so soft and bouncy. "Wyatt, big sister is in a good mood today. I'll treat you to some wine." Wyatt ruffled my hair affectionately. "Wine? Come upstairs. I'll make you some soup." Just then, a message popped up on my phone. It was James asking me to return to the Shin family mansion that evening. I glanced at it and dismissed the notification. Moments later, another message arrived, "I'll pick you up tonight." I blocked him immediately. Wyatt bustled around the kitchen in an apron while I sat at the table clamoring for dinner with my knife and fork. Soon he brought out a plate of crab, cracked open the shell for me, scooped a spoonful of crab meat, and held it to my lips. I gave Wyatt a soft peck on the mouth, "See if the crab tastes good from my mouth." Wyatt froze, his eyes darkening as he stared at me. After a moment, he swallowed hard, cupped the back of my head, and deepened the kiss. I texted James that my driver was coming to pick me up. He could either ride with me or not come at all. That evening, I spotted James downstairs lighting a cigarette. Spotting me, he blew a smoke ring. "Camila, you've gotten bold, blocking me, huh?" Without a glance his way, I climbed into the back seat. Only after a moment did James follow suit. He must have seen the surveillance footage, knew Lucy had deliberately provoked my lamb. Knowing he was in the wrong, he'd gifted me a gemstone necklace. I picked it up to examine it, the gem quality was quite good, then tossed it aside casually. James looked ready for a fight. "James, who gave you the illusion that a gemstone necklace could make me feel better after being wronged?" James cursed under his breath, rolled down the window to flick out his cigarette butt. The instant the window opened, the cold air made me shiver. I already apologized. "What more do you want? Lucy has leukemia, didn't you push her over the edge?" I was beyond furious. If she has leukemia, she should rest and recover instead of running around everywhere. How am I supposed to avoid upsetting her? Should I bow down to her like a slave? I'd probably sprout a sacred relic if I even touched her. James's impatience was written all over his face. "Camila, I cut him off. You what? You want me to get out again? I've really spoiled you rotten. This is my car, James. You get out." "Fine, go ahead." He slammed the door and got out. I looked at the phone in my hand with satisfaction. I'd just snatched it from James. The rain was pouring today, so James couldn't hail a cab. I made him walk home obediently. Grandma was stuck in Florence due to flight delays from the weather. Honestly, it was for the best, otherwise, she'd have been furious upon returning. Because the Shin group is now run by Elias. Rumor has it Elias started as a lowly clerk and rose rapidly, reviving several dying industries. Whispers also suggest he's Shin's father's illegitimate son. James hadn't touched company affairs for months, leaving the door wide open for Elias. By the time I learned the Shin family was facing bankruptcy, Elias had already moved into the Shin mansion. He sat there, legs crossed, grinning at me. "Sis, didn't see that coming, huh?" I paused. "Actually, I did. After all, you planted that bug so blatantly. It would have been hard not to notice." Yes, he'd hidden a listening device inside the lamb necklace he gave me. Probably hoping to eavesdrop on company secrets between me and Little Lamb. Ha! As if I, a brainless bimbo with nothing but big boobs, knew any business secrets. Our family business was entirely run by my father. Elias seemed taken aback by my sharpness. After another pause, he pressed, "So do you know who was behind that kidnapping?" "Probably Lucy." Elias fell silent again. I continued, "She was too calm, as if certain the kidnappers wouldn't harm her. Probably testing whether James liked me. Honestly, it wasn't necessary. If James truly liked me, how could I not see it?" Elias simply pulled out a card and slammed it in front of me. "Sis, 10 million or James. Take your pick." That was laughable. What choice did I have? Hesitating for even a second would be disrespectful to the 10 million. "I'll take the 10 million. After signing the divorce papers, James was kicked out of the Shin family mansion. Yet he walked down the street, smoking a cigarette with unhurried ease. When he saw me, he smiled. "You're with Wyatt now?" I stayed silent. He crushed his cigarette butt, his smile tinged with sorrow. "Camila, you always wear that lukewarm expression. If I tried to win you back now, do you think we could still have a chance?" That made me laugh. "Goodbye." James didn't seem annoyed. He strode over and forcefully wrapped his scarf around my neck. "Camila, would you believe me if I said I just realized I like you?" I raised my middle finger again, but James grabbed my hand mid-motion. He seemed to realize how ridiculous that statement was and switched tactics. "If Wyatt and I got into a fight, whose side would you take?" "Wyatt." James smiled bitterly. "I didn't realize Wyatt meant so much to you." "Then who would you side with if I fought someone else?" "Someone else." It proved you shouldn't celebrate too soon. Before Elias could even settle into the company, James had already reclaimed it. He'd sensed Elias's true identity the moment he appeared in my life. Teaming up with trusted shareholders, he transferred the shell company to Elias and exposed the company's disloyal elements. James had always been resourceful, that was his nature. If only he'd stopped gazing at me with that sickeningly sentimental look. Back then, Elias offered me $10 million to leave him. Now James offered $20 million for me to remain Mrs. Shin. I waved him off. "No thanks, I'm out." I ran into Elias outside the Shin Group building after he'd been kicked out. He forced a light-hearted smile. "Who'd have thought?" I didn't respond. Elias raised an eyebrow, incredulous. "What? Did you foresee this too?" I nodded honestly. "Actually, James always knew you were the Shin family's illegitimate son. Last time, he was the one who told me to bring you over." James got drunk and texted me in the middle of the night asking if we could get back together. I quickly replied with 2 words. "Where?" "Downstairs at your place. Come hug me." I laughed. "Transfer me $20. Take a cab home." Wyatt was truly gentle. When I was learning to drive, he'd softly tell me not to be nervous, to take it slow. Unlike James, during my test last year, when I fumbled the brakes, his first words were, yeah, just run him over." Wyatt and I got married. We're very happy. I haven't heard from James in ages. Some say he went abroad, others say he died. But no one has seen him since. When did I truly give up on James? It was after Lucy got hit by that little sheep. He came into my room with utter contempt, his eyes like he was staring at something disgusting. "Camila, you didn't have that animal push Lucy over just to get my attention, did you? How despicable. That beast is just like you." He called my little lamb a beast. James probably forgot that felting was all the rage at school back then. To give James a lamb I felted myself, I stayed up 3 nights straight. When I finally gave him the felted lamb, he hung it on his backpack with utter disgust. "This pig is ugly." I kicked him. "This is my little lamb. I want to raise a white lamb someday, and we'll raise it together." James let out a long, drawn-out "oh." "Well, you'd better get a smart one that can take care of itself and look after you too." Thinking about it now still hurts, but I have Wyatt. I'll always be loyal to Wyatt's love, and I'll never forgive James. Extra chapter, James' soliloquy. Camila once asked me a rather amusing question. She said, "With me being such a perfect foil, did you ever waver in choosing to love me?" She's always been so self-absorbed, it left me speechless. Truth is, the reason I fell for Lucy was precisely because of Camila's foil effect. That day at the orphanage charity event, distributing supplies, I spotted Lucy standing among a group of children. She wore a faded white dress, smiling gently. She bent down to ruffle a little boy's hair, then handed him a stuffed toy. Just then, Camila's car pulled up. As she jumped out, mud splattered her little leather boots. "Holy shit, mud," she blurted out. It was precisely against Camila's spoiled brat backdrop that I fell for Lucy's grit, temper, and decisiveness. From childhood, I'd always wanted to marry someone who knew exactly what they loved and hated, not someone like Camila who couldn't peel a crab, got lost without directions, and would absolutely forget to buckle her seatbelt unless I reminded her. Every time she went out with the driver, I had to call repeatedly to remind him to make sure the wife was buckled up. I was always on edge whenever she left the house, terrified that if she went out with the driver, he might come back alone. Camila always treated my warnings like they were nothing, even after she was kidnapped, stubbornly insisting she hadn't wandered off. When I got Camila's call, I was furious. Not only did I want to say I'd only pay $3 million to save Lucy, but when the kidnappers threatened to slit Camila's throat if I didn't believe them, I wanted to retort, I won't believe it unless you show me. But I feared they might actually harm Camila, so I swallowed those words. Yet Camila had gone bad. She dragged Lucy into this kidnapping. When Lucy accused Camila of sending people to kidnap her, I thought I was hearing things. Camila was always timid and avoided trouble. This behavior felt like my own tree had grown crooked. So I said, you better pray this has nothing to do with you. Otherwise, just wait till I get my hands on you. Truthfully, there are things I deliberately avoid thinking about. Like why I kept saying I loved Lucy, yet went against everyone's advice to marry Camila. Why Lucy nursed me when I was sick, yet I gave all the credit to Camila in front of Grandma. I deliberately avoided these thoughts. First, my relationship with Camila was already strained, dwelling on it served no purpose. Second, Lucy's leukemia meant she didn't have much time left, and I didn't want to upset her. After Lucy passed, Camila and I would live out our days in peace. My Camila would be the happiest girl in the world. When did I realize I liked her? Probably one morning when Camila suddenly decided to make breakfast but overcooked the steak until it was tough as old boots. I immediately tossed my fork aside, declaring I wouldn't eat steak cooked to 12 minutes. Camila shot back, me neither. I only eat my steak 0.000001 minutes rare. Usually, I chase the cattle and gnaw on them the moment the first rays of dawn hit their hides. Suddenly, I realized how adorable the girl sitting before me was, and that this girl was my wife. Extra chapter, Lucy's monologue. Do you know what James's last words to me were? I've seen plenty of human darkness, but I still see only innocence in you. What I mean is, your little tricks shouldn't have worked on me. He knew all along. I deliberately appeared before him in a white dress, deliberately smiled with innocent innocence. I grew up in an orphanage, where we only got a small piece of pastry on weekends and wore hand-me-down clothes from donations. I had no money for clothes, no money for treats, not even enough to treat my leukemia. I always knew Elias was the Shin family's illegitimate son. We were the closest in the orphanage. He cut out James's event photos to paste on his walls and watch his TV interviews. I knew he harbored resentment. As another Shin family scion, how could Elias lack ambition? So I urged him to pursue Camila while I pursued James. At first, I only wanted him to cure my illness. Later, I realized the disease was incurable and that I had fallen in love with him. I didn't want to die. I wanted to be with James. The thought of him spending his life with another woman after my death consumed me with jealousy like wildfire. I kidnapped Camila to drive a wedge between them. I deliberately provoked the lamb until it knocked him down. I loved him too much to tolerate any connection between him and Camila. I never drink milk, yet that day at the hospital he specifically bought hot milk for Camila to warm her hands. I don't like crab either, but the villa was always stocked with seafood. Once he casually handed me a crab claw, then pulled it back as if remembering something. He smiled gently, forgot you don't like crab. Camila loves it, she can eat 2 plates every time. In that instant, my heart sank to the bottom. Love always blinds those within it. Camila didn't love him, yet he spoke to her without restraint, using the harshest words. But after my kidnapping, I asked him, did you truly have no intention of rescuing Camila with that $3 million? He laughed like a child, I was just scaring her, making her run around. So many little things failed to move Camila, failed to make James realize his own feelings, yet made me acutely aware that I was losing him. James always fed Camila's little lamb grass. He'd complain about the lamb pooping everywhere, then pinch his nose to clean it up. Grandma never demanded Camila return to the Shin family mansion. Camila was just a business marriage. If her grandson didn't like her, so be it. It was James who called her back. He wanted Camila to eat with him, to serve him porridge and help him with his food. After all this time together, James never touched me, yet he always carried Camila upstairs after she fell asleep in the living room after gaming. Then I spotted a gemstone necklace. James said it was beautiful, a one-of-a-kind piece. He bought it and gave it to Camila. Jealousy nearly tore me apart. James saw through my pathetic tricks. He didn't want me anymore. But why should Camila marry Wyatt unscathed? If she can live happily, she should suffer like me. I used the money James left me to hire a gang of thugs, planning to kidnap Camila and humiliate her. But James found out first. Before he could even call the police, he charged at them. The usually refined man fought like a wild dog, dragging the thugs down as clubs rained down on him. James died in that dark alley, stabbed 7 times. His final call was to the Shin family, demanding they suppress the news. As I stepped into the alley, bloodstained, he saw me and still smiled. He said, "Lucy, do you think Camila will cry if she finds out I'm dead?" I didn't know. But I cried until my heart tore apart, crying until my mouth ran full of blood. Camila will never know, not even in death, that James loved her.